What does it mean to show up in a marriage with healthy masculine energy? Masculine energy isn't about being overbearing, and it certainly isn't about being too passive. It's about being grounded. It's about being confident. It's about being present. You're going to create emotional safety through consistency and curiosity, not having the answers. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller, and today we're talking about masculine energy in relationship, showing up without taking over. Or really, the alternative title would be showing up without giving in all the time. The truth is that healthy masculinity is about embracing all of who you are and giving permission to your partner to be all of who they are. And we're going to talk about that more on this episode. So maybe you've been told you're too passive, or maybe you've been told you're too controlling. You try to give them space, but she says you're distant. You step up and she says you're overbearing. Masculine energy isn't about being overbearing, and it certainly isn't about being too passive. It's about being grounded. It's about being confident. It's about being present. When you learn to show up with your power instead of through your power, your relationship is going to transform. This question of what is masculine energy is one I've been exploring for months now. I'm writing a book. Heads up, I'm writing a book on men, masculinity, and marriage. And hey, if you want to be a first reader for this book, I'd love to hear from you. Contact me, rich@richinrelationship.com. Or if you've got something you want to say, I want to hear from you about what is masculinity in 2025. How do you show up in a way that's both masculine and still allows your partner to be all of who she is? For the purposes of this conversation, for those of you in same-sex marriages, we're talking about masculine energy as being goal-oriented, directed, somewhat structured, though it isn't always. Grounded, it's usually grounded in a place you want to go to. Feminine energy, for the purposes of this conversation, is more intuitive, though men certainly have intuition. It's about connection. There's more emotional awareness and a greater need for emotions to be heard and to hear other people's emotions. And I want to be really clear. Men can have those qualities that I just described as quote unquote feminine, and women can have those qualities that I described as quote unquote masculine. In fact, I would argue that because we've been in a male-dominated society for hundreds, if not thousands of years, that women have become quite adept at embracing masculine, goal-oriented energy. In fact, they kind of have to compete in the business structures that, for the most part, have been designed by men. Though I want to give women credit, some of the most competitive businesses out there have been focused on a feminine cultural approach to business building and create incredible teams and mad success. So we're starting to see a transition in the business world. I think we're on the front edge of a transition in the business world, and I hope in our culture. All right, guys, so I'm going to talk to you. In a marriage, the goal isn't dominance, nor is it submission. It is alignment. That happy wife, happy life crap, well, there's some truth to it, but there isn't a corollary, and there should be. Happy husband, happy life bend. There's no rhyme, right? There's no cute rhyme for guys. But the truth is that both partners need to be happy and fulfilled. And so this myth, happy life, happy wife, when it means happiness to the exclusion of the partner feeling happy, there's something really wrong with it. Strong masculine energy drives alignment, not separation, not dominance. Strong masculine energy is about encouraging and building up, not tearing down. Let's talk about my favorite couple, Brad and Gwen. For those of you who don't know, Brad and Gwen are the names I use every episode for a case study. Brad and Gwen are real clients whose names have been changed to protect the innocent. Brad used to love to try to micromanage Gwen. He would undercut every decision she made, even if it was about the children, which, let's be honest, at the age they are at, ages 1 and 3, Gwen had a much stronger emotional, intuitive connection with them because she carried them for 9 months, right? She had more intimate time with them. But Brad wanted to be in on every decision. You see, when Brad was a kid, he had a father who was massively uninvolved, and he had decided he was going to do it differently. And so he was in there second-guessing Gwen all the way. She nicknamed him the Steamroller, and it wasn't a nice nickname. Working together, Brad finally received that maybe he was trying just a little too hard to overcompensate for his own childhood. Brad got that he could be involved without pressuring. He could be involved without trying to dominate. He could be involved and trust Gwen to know what was best for the children in certain circumstances. And as a result, because he put that trust into Gwen, she started trusting him again. Oh, I love the way that rhymed. The problem isn't power. We can be powerful. We can be masculinely powerful. We can be femininely powerful, regardless of what kind of body we're in. It's about how conscious are we of using it. You see, Brad made a conscious decision he wasn't going to be like his dad, but it was showing up in very unconscious ways that was putting Gwen off. And that's why Gwen kind of dragged Brad into the office here with me. It was a Zoom call, to be honest, into the Zoom call with me. And in that room, we started to unpack all the unconscious ways Brad's decision about how he was going to be a better dad than his dad were showing up. And I got to tell you that you can't fault him for that decision. You really can't fault him at all because he was acting very unconsciously. But as we unpacked it and he became conscious of his drives, he found ways to manifest that presence that he had felt was missing for him in ways that honored Gwen, honored her strengths, and frankly made his children more comfortable as they grew up. When masculine power, masculine energy is awake in a man, it's really a beautiful thing. But when men wield their masculine energy unconsciously, it's destructive and it's painful. And that's what we've seen so much of historically. What's happening is, as we move into this time where men and women finally get that they're equal, and women can do some of the things that men used to be doing exclusively, and men can do some of the things that women were doing exclusively, the concept of what energy or power means in terms of masculinity has to be re-examined, redefined, and reapplied. When we're unconscious, guys, we can show up as over-directing. We often are experienced by our partners as trying to fix them or manipulate them or control them instead of leaning into emotion. We may actually feel a need to control in order to feel safe, an unconscious need to control. We may be shutting down when we're uncomfortable. We may be shutting them down when we're uncomfortable. But when we come from a place of conscious awareness of what it means to be a man, to walk in strength as a man, we can lead steadily. We can lead steadily without forcing leadership. We can lead because it's being given to us, because we've earned back that trust. We can actually, in that lead, we can actually hold a safe emotional space without trying to fix anything. Just get that when we take that linear quality and focus it on the goal of creating emotional safety, when we take that goal-oriented nature and focus it on becoming what we're calling emotionally fluent, When we take that goal-oriented energy and start to focus on, all right, what am I feeling? Can I name it? Can I, now that I've named it, share it in a way that's both emotionally available, but doesn't feel wussy to me? Right? That's kind of what it's about here. Because the box that we're coming out of is real men don't feel. Well, we know that we feel. Not only do we feel, we can name it. Not only can we name it, we can express it. Can we express it in a way that still aligns with our sense of what it means to be masculine? Or maybe sometimes we need to express emotion in a way that isn't traditionally considered masculine, under the right conditions and with the right person. We're holding that emotional space without trying to solve the problem. It changes the game. So how do you show up without taking over? You don't need to shrink to be a partner. You don't need to recede. You don't need to dominate. What you need to do is sharpen your own awareness of yourself. You need to sharpen your awareness of when your partner simply needs to share. You need to sharpen your awareness of what the situation actually calls for. Just drop where it is you're going for a second and make the goal to be in the moment. There's a saying that the journey is as important as the goal. There has never been a time where that saying was more needed, guys. It is right now in your marriage. You need to get into the journey more. And you know what's going to blow you away is the stronger your partner is. And if she's working and she's successful at work, she needs you to bring her into the moment, because she's been so leaning into her masculine side in order to take names and kick butt at work that she's forgotten what it means to just be there with you. You can help her with that laser focus. You need to know when to speak and know when to listen. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Use language that invites collaboration, right? You want to say things like, this is what I'm seeing right now. What do you think? What are you seeing? Use open-ended questions. Invite your partner to share with you in a way that opens up conversation instead of closes it, right? When we're using our masculine energy to hammer, we tend to shut down the conversation. When we're directing our masculine energy in a way that opens and explores, we're using open-ended questions, we're inviting dialogue instead of diatribe. You're going to create emotional safety through consistency and curiosity, not having the answers. That means really listening, not sitting there and going, I understand what you're saying, but this is what I have to say. That's not going to work. That will never get you there. If you're wrestling with this bear, I want you to stay tuned to the next episode. The next episode coming up is going to be all about living this new masculinity and the daily practices that are going to help you to grow and connect. So let me ask you something. Now that you're learning how to show up powerfully and safely, what I mean, I don't mean safely for you, powerfully in a way that feels safe for her. Now that you're starting to get the concept of taking your natural train on the tracks way and making the station here, now, what are we feeling? Making it safe in this moment. Now that you're getting that is the way to show up powerfully, how can you stay in that space consistently, right? And hint, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably an adult, and that means you have years and years of programming that's in contradiction to what I just shared with you. And if what I just shared with you made sense to you intellectually, I promise you that you do not yet have the neural networks, the brain neurology to support it. What it takes to change our neural network, to take a decision that we make with emotion and that we embrace intellectually, and to really feel it in our whole body, which has years of reacting a certain way and acting a certain way. What it takes to really make it feel like we own it is repetition. What it takes to make it feel like we really own it is shifting our practices. And I want you to get that we don't shift our practices like that. It's not like one day you decide to go to the gym and all of a sudden you become Charles Atlas. Well, a lot of you may not know who Charles Atlas is. You become The Rock. It's not like that. The Rock was not built in a day. What it takes is one practice. And then as you become good at that practice, 30, 60, or 90 days later, you can bring in another practice. In fact, the advice is don't start more than 2 new habits at once and take at least 30 days before you introduce another one. The more years you have under your belt, the more time you may need to take, because the softness of our brain, the fluidity of it reduces over time. And here, I'm going to give you one more concept to take into the next episode, all right? I want you to get you that your brain isn't just like a bowl of Jell-O that's protected in your skull that you're powerless over. I want you to start thinking of your brain as a collection of muscles. Just like if you want to build up a muscle, you tear it, you stress it a little, and make it get stronger. If you do that consistently, 3 times a week, 2 times a week, 3 times a week, it gets bigger and stronger. Similarly, if you want to build new neurology, new neural networks, if you want to start developing the part of your brain that helps you to navigate emotionally challenging moments, it's through regular practice, regular exercising of that muscle. And we've done multiple episodes on this challenge of the part of our brain that has no rationality and that is all about fight, flight, or play dead, that triggers a massive chemical reaction in our body and how much time it takes to reset, and the part of our brain that can override, not always immediately, but override that part of our brain that's trying to keep us safe. And it's not like one is better than the other. Actually, they dance best together. Otherwise, we'd all just get our amygdala taken out and then we'd never fear anything and we'd probably all be dead. But the truth is, we need to be cautious and careful. The reason why we all have amygdalas is thousands of years of life have validated that having that part of our brain in that size and working in that way is useful. We just need to be able to not allow it to hijack us, and that requires exercising our cerebral cortex. And so I want you to think about men. I want you to, and women actually, I want you to start thinking about health, not just as physical health or emotional health, or I want you really to think, or spiritual health. I want you to think about spiritual health and emotional health as being about brain health, right? And that we need to consciously choose to exercise those muscles, just like we would consciously choose to exercise our bodies. And if you're not consciously choosing to exercise your bodies, you got some work to do, because if you want to have a long and prosperous and joyful life, taking care of the vessel is a giant step towards that. All right, with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Rich in Relationship, when we talk about living the new masculinity. And again, if you want to help me out with this book, reach out to me, Rich at Rich in Relationship, or direct message me on Facebook, Instagram, or wherever you find the Rich in Relationship brand. Thank you so much, and have an awesome day and an amazing tomorrow.